Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything that I'm saying on this YouTube channel reaction video series is completely speculative based on very little information. Let's watch.
Devastated. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I did wrong. I've been... Everything she said on the first trip, I tried to fix myself. I just don't know what else more I could do.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing unusual about what's happening right now. He's been dealing with rejection signaling over the past number of days from his fiancé. And I think that some people who are watching the show might not really internalize that they were engaged. He had every reason to believe that this was forever. It's not like they're just kind of dating. And so now from the outside, you, particularly his friends, you could say you're kind of being a fool in that you don't really know her, and you need more time before you can really know if the engagement or the marriage is actually going to be a compatible one. But anyway, from his perspective, he's in love. He is attracted to her. She is his dream person. They're engaged. It's romantic. She would complain. He fixed the problems, and she said, "Yes, you have fixed the problems. Thank you." And everything was going great. He comes back down. She's giving him the cold shoulder. And from the outside, of course, we look at that and we're like, "Well, Mike, move on." But when was the last time you were in a situation where your partner, who you were engaged to or married to, was giving you the cold shoulder? Did you just jump ship? I hope not. So, he's thinking, well, according to previous situations, if I ask her what her complaints are and I adjust for that, then, everything will be fine. He tried to do that. He started to get more signals. He starts wondering rationally, like, wait, is she falling out of love with me? But there's a big part of him that probably doesn't want to believe that, which is, of course, normal and human. Then this evening, she tells him in no uncertain terms that she's done, and he's upset. He is hurt. He is probably freaking out. It can actually be traumatic to the nervous system, not for everyone, but it can be. At the very least, it's distressing, and the cameras are there. I mean, I said this last week, that just imagine your worst, because I think this is his worst breakup he's ever had in his life. And it'd be one of the worst breakups of all of our lives. Imagine it's like divorce, or you're engaged to someone and they just break up with you. Imagine that, which is awful, and imagine that it's being filmed the entire time, and you don't have any support system around, and you're insecure to begin with. So it makes total sense. And so he runs off because he's probably just freaking out, and maybe just wants to be alone or get away from her, or get away from the cameras or something. And then he sits down, he's just like, "I don't understand. I thought everything was going well." It's totally normal. It takes a while for the brain and the soul to adjust to it. Now, as I've said before, we have heard some rumors that he has done some deplorable things, not only regarding racism and posting on the internet, but also perhaps abusive behavior to Ximena. We don't know, of course, but there are allegations of that, and that's all part of the picture, I guess.
This whole 1-year relationship was all over probably freaking money. I thought it was real.
So it's normal for him to think that, like, oh, this whole relationship was about money. And looking back, I think this, and I've hypothesized this before, that it wasn't all about money. It was significantly about money, but it wasn't all about money. That she did have affection for him in the beginning and up till the engagement, but a good portion of the motivation to stick it out and to try to move past her annoyances or displeasure or slight repulsion of him was due to money. Not only her own thoughts of, I want a good future for my kids, but also pressure from her family, which we've seen depicted.
Lo siento. Tú no más relación. No te amo, no te quiero.
te quiero, pero no te amo. No quiero hacerte daño. Nuestra relación se terminó y ya.
Yeah, good. So I think she's trying to be nice in some way, saying, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. But the relationship is over. And I will commend her for being clear. A lot of people in life and on the show are not clear. They will say, you know, things like, I don't want to be in a relationship. And that might be very clear for many of us, but if you're looking at it through a certain lens of optimism, you might hear that as, well, we're still kind of romantically involved, but not really. We're in a different phase of our relationship. Instead of just saying, our relationship is over. Our romantic relationship is over. I will start dating other people. You will start dating other people. We will never date again. We can talk as friends, but we will never be, she's being pretty clear, which is good. And I'm glad that they're revisiting this. Let's hope that they can be amicable.
No quiero que te quedes en la casa. ¿Te pago el hotel?
Otro cama en casa.
¿Y por qué la casa?
Por favor.
Oh, ouch. So on one hand, I get it. Mike is desperate. I think he's regressing. I think he still thinks there's a chance, maybe, or he just can't let go. It's normal, again, particularly if this is your first rodeo when it comes to being dumped, that you just like, please don't leave me. It's normal. It's hard to watch, but it's normal. But if I were there, I would say, Mike, no. I mean, she's saying you can't stay in her place. You can't force yourself into her place. I get that you want to stay there, but don't pressure that. Plus, let's say she gives in. Is that really kind of what you want, where she's already repulsed by you and doesn't want to be with you, and now you're kind of an invasive presence in her house with her kids? Like, the kids will be there. You're probably gonna get into some arguments or something. So, just get a hotel. Now, I think she has enough assertiveness to actually say no to this. So let's see what happens.
Okay, está bien.
I'm just like hurt. I'm frustrated. It seems like this whole past year was a waste.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it feels when you get dumped in situations like this. And it also is another reason why one should be cautious about dating people from other countries, or from other, I've listened to my whole deep dive on long distance relationships. It's an audio episode, but there's a lot of research and a lot of tips and a lot of considerations. But one of the considerations is research shows, I believe, or at least anecdotal evidence would show, that relationships that start in person and then become long distance are much more likely to work than if they start long distance. Because starting long distance means that it's hard to be the real you. You're the real you, but you're not the real you, Whereas when you're in person, you're much more likely to see each other and their true colors. And when that happens, then you can really evaluate the compatibility between the two people. Whereas if it starts long distance, as we've seen in the show, you put off that evaluative power until you happen to be in person long enough to actually experience each other's true colors, or experience your true attraction or lack thereof to another person.
Because I put so much into this. I love this girl. I eventually want to marry her. And it's really hurtful and sad that she doesn't feel the same way. I don't know what to think, but right now, I'm really not feeling good.
And it does show that Ximena has a heart, which of course she does, that she would give in and let him stay at her place. She has every reason to say no to that. She even offered to pay for the hotel, and he's like, no, please, please, please. And she says, okay. I think because, she doesn't want to hurt him. She doesn't want him to feel terrible. But I don't think it's a good idea because because with the kids there, da da da.
¿Qué pasó con Mike?
Yo le dije a Mike que no quería seguir más con él. O sea, yo sí lo quiero y sentía cosas bonitas por él, pero es que no sé, todo cambió.
So good. You often hear me talking about if you're going to break up with someone, a key component of ethical breaking up is to identify for yourself and really get into the other person's head that you did love them at one point. Because if you don't really make sure that the other person understands that, then a very convenient narrative will sneak in, which is you never loved them. And that's a very destructive idea, right? Essentially, you tricked them, or you're a cold-hearted person, or you're a psychopath, or what the internet will call a narcissist, that's the sort of thing. Instead of the truth, which is, no, I did love you. I was totally into you. I had my reservations, but I was 95% sure that this was going to be it. And then everything changed, as she's saying. I don't know what happened. Like something happened and I just fell out of love. That happens. We understand that happens. So you want to make sure that that is very, communicated to the other person. It's also important to tell how the change happened as best as you can explain, and also that you did your best to try to fight it, because you don't want to just have this thing like, well, one day I thought maybe I didn't love you, and so boom, I'm done. You want to convey that it stressed you out. You didn't want to give up a thing that you loved. You didn't want to hurt the other person. The other thing to communicate is, and for those of you who watched the OK Baby reaction that I did, there were elements of this in the breakup that Kira did for Oscar. But the other element is you want to tell the person, I've had feelings of reservation about this relationship for X amount of months or years. But I didn't decide to break up until this point, because I was only slightly, I would have moments where I thought maybe the relationship should end. But then I would very quickly say, no, everything's great, everything's great, everything's great. And everything was great. But then, the feeling kind of grew and grew and grew, and then it hit a critical mass. And I'm telling a story that's kind of typical. Obviously, not every story is like this, but this is a very common scenario. The feeling kind of grew, but for the most part, I knew I wanted to be with you. But then it kind of hit a critical mass around a couple months ago, and then I just knew. And I was fighting it, I was fighting it, but then I just woke up one day, and I just felt like I just can't do this. It might have been after a big fight. It might have been as you started to be attracted to other people or whatever. And you want to convey that, because that's another part of the narrative. It's like, I didn't just decide this yesterday. It wasn't impulsive. This has been an ongoing thing. And even though I've been thinking about this for X amount of months or years, it wasn't significant. Because, if you say to someone, I've been thinking about this for the past 2 years, then the person you're breaking up with is like, so the past 2 years have been one big lie? And it usually isn't. Usually it's well, no, I mean, I just had this, every once in a while I'd have this flash thought of just like, that I wanted to be out, or that I thought you'd be better off with someone else, or I'd be better off with someone else. But then pretty quickly I'd recover, or I'd try to get rid of that feeling, or we would go to therapy, would work on the relationship, and things would get better. And then I think, okay, everything's going to be great. It's important to really convey that whole thing, because it will help the person that you're breaking up with to have a positive narrative that isn't, relationally traumatizing to them. And, she's doing that, which is good.
Horrible. Me quedo sola mejor. Yo puedo trabajar como hacía antes.
Aunque antes no teníamos tantas cosas, pero pues
Teníamos comida y techo.
sí. Y se podrá siempre.
Okay, so she's saying that she'd rather go. It's interesting the way that she's talking, right? She's like, yeah, I'll just go back to the way things were before when I was working. And, it's an interesting that the things are so connected, that being with Mike and work and all that kind of stuff, of course that it would be, but it's so quick to come to mind, right? Now, I would hope for Ximena that she would consider, for her own attachment needs, perhaps for her own stability needs, I don't know, that, because I wonder if for Ximena, it's hard to know, but that her typical dating attraction is to people who are chaotic and not good for her for a variety of reasons. And that's what she was doing up until this point. And then she's like, that's not working. I need to find a different way of dating. And then she goes in a completely different direction and she starts to date Mike. And she's like, oh, there's actually a lot of things that I'm getting out of Mike that I wasn't getting out of my past relationships. And this is good. And this is going to work. And this is great. And then it doesn't work out here. And she's like, screw it. I'm done with the whole thing. I would hope that for her, she could consider there are other types of relationships, there are other people out there that might actually be more compatible with her in a variety of ways, not only just in stability and lack of chaos, good stepfather, this kind of thing, but also someone that she's attracted to. You know, it's absolutely possible. All right, well, I want to thank y'all for liking this video. I actually look at every video in terms of how many likes I get. So if you like it, you know, if you don't, then obviously don't. But if you like it, it helps if it's nearby and you can just click on it. My self-esteem depends partly on it. You know, I don't know how much of a percentage, but, you know, some. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.